Hey everybody, and welcome back to an episode of I Read What I Read. In this episode, I'll be reviewing Remarkably Bright Creatures, both the movie and the book. Let's start with the movie. It came out on Netflix May 8th, and it stars the Sally Field as Tova Sullivan and Lewis Pullman as the character Cameron. Now, there will be a little bit of spoilers here. They are two of the main characters, along with an aquatic friend who is a prominent character in the story as well. As far as the movie, it was an average movie. It wasn't anything like bells and whistles, but the story really couldn't take much. You already had to go into the fantasy of it all because we have a talking, aquatic friend here. So you had to kind of get into the fantasy of it all because there's three perspectives, and those perspectives are Tova, Cameron, and then our aquatic friend. In the movie, I feel like you're immediately able to allow yourself to believe, oh yeah, an octopus is talking, because it just doesn't, anything can happen in the movie. So why not? In the book, that was a bit off-putting for me, and I'll get into more of that later. But in the movie, it to me immediately made sense. If I had never read the book, it would have still made sense because we give ourselves allowances for things in movies that we know can't happen in real life because it's a movie. So a talking animal of any sort, whether they're from the sea or from land, it'll just make sense in the movie, right? And just like most things, they don't explain why he talks. They don't explain why we have to have his perspective. He's just the main character in the movie and you gotta accept it. The story does have an overarching sadness to it and an undercurrent of longing, of undercurrent of melancholy, if you will. You see simultaneously things happening to Tova, happening to Cameron, and happening to our aquatic friend. As it develops, it talks about how their lives are intertwined and how their lives came to be interconnected. Again, as a movie, they have to keep the pace to make sure that everybody stays engaged, but obviously they left a lot of major parts out that the book fills in. If you were watching this as a standalone movie, you're watching it because maybe you like Sally Field. Like me. I mean, Sally has been in the game, true OG, along with your Diane Keatons and things like that. Now, don't let the skincare fool you. I'm old enough to remember her as Gidget and the Flying Nun. So Sally has been with us for a minute. I love that she played this character because she actually embodied the character. I think I read somewhere that she championed the project, and it makes sense because as she was playing it, I was trying to think who else could do this like her. Nobody. So it was wonderful to see her on the screen. One of my favorite parts was actually the Nitwits, her little group of, friends. I love the characters that made that group. I love the diversity. Kathy Baker, who is another favorite of mine. I've been, a fan of her since like Picket Fences. So I love seeing her on the screen again. And it was great seeing just some of the actresses I hadn't seen in a long time playing really cool parts that made sense for them. By reading the book, you know exactly what to expect, but also you can be disappointed, of course, if they don't include your favorite part in the book. As I said, they did their best to get all the main plot points just to make sure it made sense. I didn't really pay much attention to the dialogue and how the dialogue may have changed because, again, I was just looking for the overall theme. I mean, again, we had to address a talking animal. Now, they didn't put a mouth on the octopus, but its consciousness, spoke to us. Let's go ahead and segue into the book. I got to be honest, I didn't like the book at first. I put it down after maybe a couple of chapters. I don't even know. It was probably less than 5 chapters. And I had read it at the suggestion of someone in a book club. They were reading it, for that month's selection. Now, I didn't go to the meeting then. I went to a meeting later about a different book. But in that meeting, I happened to start talking about Remarkably Bright Creatures. And I had talked about how I really wasn't feeling it. And someone was like, you should go back and reread it, or you should go back and continue, because I told him I had stopped. And I was listening to the book on Audible. So I was like, all right, fine. Let me just see what it's all about. So when I restarted it, I don't know, maybe I was just in a different headspace because I was able to finish it and I didn't hate it. It was funny because, as I said, what I didn't really love about it in the beginning was ultimately something I just got used to. And I'm like, okay, this is a good book. This is okay. It's a good story. It had a really good connection. And I just liked the storytelling. It was the first book that I'd ever read by the author, so I'd never even heard of it. And the funny thing about it is it was crazy that I didn't like it at first because just the description alone drew me into wanting to read it. But I guess when I was listening to it and I was hearing the voice come through for our aquatic friend, I don't know. I was, again, too much in my head like, octopuses don't talk, so, what is this? But what was realistic, and I use that word, quotes, obviously, in the movie, became understandable and something expected in the book. I'd give the book 4 stars and the movie 3.5. It just wasn't on the same level, but I think that's close enough, and I think that's a fair rating. I never watch a movie with the expectation it's going to be as good as the book. It just never is. It never will be. But sometimes there are some that really come close. Now, I haven't read Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand, but I did see that movie that series. It's a series on Netflix, and I intend to read the book and then probably rewatch the series. I also haven't seen the movie Housemaid, but I have read all of the Housemaids, the Housemaid 1, Housemaid 2, and I think there might have been a 3, but I've read at least 2 of the Housemaids. Now, I got to say, I can't even say I'm no longer. I'm not a Frida McFadden fan. Dear Debbie was the last book that I read and pretty much was the nail in the coffin and was like, nah. The way that I know I get down and kind of love and stand Ellen Hildebrand is the way that I'm like, yeah, Frida, you are so good. You are making your coin, but I am not your target audience. I just cannot read her books. I've done enough. I've given them enough of my support. I know my limits. So tell me what you think. What's your preference? I think certain books just should never be made into movies because it just really dampens the book. And I'm glad that the majority of books aren't made into movies. I think that's the right move. But for those who have a story that really seems like it has to come across on the big screen, you got to do it right. Case in point. His and Hers was a series that came out on Netflix earlier this year, and I saw the series before realizing it was a book. So then I paused the series after having stopped it, starting it just a little bit into like the first episode, and started to read the book. That book did not do it for me. I finished it, but I skipped a ton of it because after the back and forth, I realized I don't really like this book, but I do want to see what happened. So I literally just looked at the table of contents and picked a chapter that I thought, oh, they'll probably start telling us what's happening. Once I got to the end of the book, I was like, yeah, nah, I'm not even turning that series back on. I don't care. So not everything is going to draw you in just because the book is good or you've been told the book is good. I totally skipped the series because I was like, I barely made it through the book. So that's my take on Remarkably Bright Creatures. Worth the watch. Whether you read the book or not. Reading the book is always better to do so you'll know what's left out and it gives you the fullness of the story. But if you are a fan of Sally Field, she will not disappoint. That's it for this episode of I Read What I Read. And I guess it's also I Watched What I Watched, but you get it. Come back for the next episode where I talk about the Amazon original Deadly Ambition. It's a collection of 6 short stories written by 6 different authors. If you like what you see, please be sure to subscribe, check out the episodes you may have missed, and make sure you stay tuned for so much great stuff coming up on this channel and this podcast. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.